Welcome to our April Covenant Sunday. We're just outside the octave of Easter. Easter, where we're called to become new people, people of the resurrection. Also, today we celebrate Divine Mercy Sunday. Let us remind ourselves of the deep mercy of our loving God. Today, I want to share with you, or perhaps introduce to you for the first time, a remarkable woman, to which all women in Schoenstatt owe a debt of gratitude. Their first woman to belong to Schoenstatt, Gertraud Von Bullion. I could not believe I had not heard her name until 1995, when Anne Ruhorn, Therese Fuller and I were preparing with the International Schoenstatt family for the 75th Jubilee of the Women's League. Since then, the Women's League have celebrated our 100th Jubilee. Until you are introduced to a person, they remain unseen, unknown. I think it is time now that the wider Australian Schoenstatt family get to know Gertraud Von Bullion. Gertrude's life shows us the importance of becoming letters of recommendation for Schoenstatt spirituality by living faithfully our covenant of love and spirituality wherever we are. Gertrude got to know and love Schoenstatt through the young Schoenstatt students fighting on the battlefields of France and Belgium during World War I. The way they remained loyal to each other through making contributions to the capital of grace, and the way they remained loyal to their mother thrice admirable, and the trust they placed in their mother. Gertrude was a Red Cross nurse in the field hospital at Mons in Belgium during World War I. Gertrude's life is also a witness, a letter to the fact that leadership is selfless service. Now I present to you Gertraud Von Bullion, a letter that opened Schoenstatt up to women. Gertrude was from a noble heritage. She was an educated and cultured woman with determination and a servant's heart. It was said of Gertrude, she was distinguished for her clear knowledge and thinking and her warm heart and resolute will. She was educated in Austria, Belgium, and England. A faith-filled woman of her time, she had a devotion to the Sacred Heart and a deep love for Our Lady. Her two passions in life were, number one, to help people, each one where it is needed, and secondly, to see God is loved and honoured everywhere. When World War I broke out, without hesitation, she became a nurse with the Red Cross. For 4 years, she devoted herself to the wounded and dying on the battlefields. She did not shy away from any task, often volunteering for the most menial tasks or tasks no one else wanted to do. She did this out of love for Jesus and Mary. Gertrude got to know Franz Salzhofer as he was an orderly at the Mons Field Hospital. He was also a member of the Schoenstatt Marian Sodality. He shared with her, the Mother Thrice Admirable, the Sodalist magazine that Father Kentenich edited. This was a tool used by Father Kentenich to stay in touch with the young soldiers on the battlefield. As it says in the founding document, I will draw youthful hearts to myself. Gertrude's heart was drawn to the Mother Thrice Admirable of Schoenstatt. Just imagine on the fields of death, the young soldiers' love for Our Lady shone through. Their loyalty and love set the hearts of others on fire. Gertrude was inspired by the boys' continued striving for holiness, even on the battlefields among the horrors of war. In 1917, Gertrude started writing to Father Kentenich, requesting if she could follow Schoenstatt spirituality. As we know, Father Kentenich always listened to divine providence. He was a spiritual director of a minor seminary and was not sure what Gertrude was asking was according to God's plans. Our Mother Thrice Admirable had to lead him. The doors were opened 3 years later. After returning home to Germany in November 1918, she wrote to Father Kentenich requesting that he become her spiritual director. Since he had a principle that he would not work with women until he was 35 years old, he referred Gertrude to Father Kolb. Father Kolb accepted the invitation to journey with Gertrude. He led her to make her covenant of love, but she would have to find other women to join her. Her cousin Maria agreed, and together they entered into the covenant of love in 1920. After the war, it took Gertrude 3 years to convince Father Kentenich that he needed women in Schoenstatt for the Apostolic World Federation to come to fruition. As we know from our Schoenstatt history, Herder was a place where in 1919 the other men who were not students or seminarians but who learnt about Schoenstatt on the battlefields gathered, following their wish to join Schoenstatt. It was there that the Schoenstatt Federation was founded. Gertrude was the instrument who essentially helped determine women being accepted into the covenant of love and the mission of Schoenstatt, and she was the foundation member of the Women's Federation. Father Kentenich saw the women's movement as gifted with sheer, endless fruitfulness. Gertrude was a hard worker, a determined woman. She was called to be an instrument for Schoenstatt's mission. It was no surprise when she entered into the covenant of love. On the back of her medal, she engraved her motto, Servium. She wanted to be Mary's instrument for the renewal of the world. It is thought that whilst in Mons, Belgium, serving as a nurse, she contracted TB. Like many women of that time, her life would be short and painful due to illness contracted on the battlefield as they nursed the soldiers. Schoenstatt and her illness were intertwined. Gertrude simply called our Mother Thrice Admirable the Mother. The Schoenstatt Federation became Gertrude's life task, and her illness, her cross, that work to become fruitful. She saw her illness as God's gift from an inexhaustible mercy of the good Heavenly Father, with which He constantly surrounded me. Gertrude wanted to become a little Mary. She walked the way of holiness by starting each day anew, and her life was a contribution to the capital of grace for the Schoenstatt mission. To the surprise of men, in 1921, a few women started attending their conferences in Schoenstatt. They had to sit at the back and they could just listen. The women suggested to Father Kentenich that he hold a conference just for women. So the first women's conference was held on the 13th to 17th of August 1921, and 35 women attended. The topics included the apostolate, self-sanctification, particular examination, spiritual daily order, and the personal ideal. Father Kentenich wrote to the leader of the Apostolic Federation, "Above all, what our time needs is new saints, great, convincing, and joyful saints. If not saints, at least new people, whole people, new Christians, genuine Christians, wholehearted, perfect Christians. The goal of the apostolic movement is to renew the world in Christ with Mary, the way of the covenant of love." Gertrude was very generous, paying for other women to be able to come and experience the shrine in Schoenstatt. Father Kolb invited Gertrude's group of women to join the federation. They were given the old house near the shrine where they could live and gather. Gertrude wanted to make this a real home for the women. She put the call out to the League and the Federation members to give what they can, to bring 2 sets of towels and sheets and leave one behind, to bring crockery and kitchen items. Soon the house was set up. By 1925, the Women's Federation numbered 512 women, 127 of which were teachers. Although already ill with TB, Gertrude would spend hours at the sink, peeling potatoes and washing dishes. She slept on the floor on a straw mat to ensure another woman could attend her conference by giving up her bed. On what would have been her 100th birthday, September the 6th, 1991, Bishop Stimple of Augsburg opened the cause of her beatification. The Schoenstatt Women's Federation in Germany are working on this cause, though we have heard nothing of its progress. She renewed her covenant of love on her deathbed. and wrote to Father Kolb, her spiritual director. How seriously our mother has taken my offering. I do not take back one letter of my consecration. Tell that to our mother in the shrine. Yours gratefully, GVB. Gertrude died on Pentecost Day, June 11, 1930. At the time of her death, Father Kentenich called her a very great woman. 3 members of the Women's Federation and a sister of Mary, most likely Sister Magdalene, her cousin Maria, were present at her funeral, at her resting place. It was said, the seed that was planted into the ground, where it has brought forth much fruit. At her death, Gertrude's main concern was that she did not want the spirit of the First Federation members to be lost. Gertrude gives us a challenge for the future, to live the covenant faithfully and joyfully radiate love in our service to others. Out of interest, here is the timeline of women's branches in Schoenstatt. 1920-21, the Women's League and Federation were founded. In 1926, the Schoenstatt Sisters of Mary were founded. In 1931, Girls and Youth Branch was founded. In 1940, the Mothers Branch. But we have grown from the one seed, Gertraud Von Bullion, and her cousin Maria, making the covenant of love on December 8, 1920. Father Kentenich said on December 8, 1944, the seed that was sown in 1914 has matured by slow and organic growth. It has developed into a mighty tree. Make the legacy of your forefathers your own. And I add, the seed that blossomed over 100 years ago, that grew into the women's branches. We are called to make our foresisters our own. To do this, we must learn our history, know where we have come from. We know the history of Father Kentenich and the first boys, but today let's meet and give thanks for Gertraud Von Bullion, a brave and generous servant. On June the 2nd, 1966, Father Kentenich visited Augsburg, where Gertrude was from, and he asked those gathered at the train station to meet him, do you know Gertraud Von Bullion? He especially urged the girls to take up her heritage. Her history is a secret seed, exteriorly insignificant, but when it sacrifices itself, it brings forth much fruit. 100 years later, we are here to get to know her and to renew the gift she allowed women to have, to enter into the covenant of love. Father Kentenich saw Gertrude's covenant as the most weighty and powerful event of the 1920s. We can indeed say that she is a letter of recommendation for us today. Thank you. And I put together a few questions for us to share. So the first question is, after her death, Gertrude's main concern was she did not want the spirit of the First Federation members to be lost. Gertrude gives us a challenge for our time, a challenge for the future, to live the covenant faithfully and joyfully radiate love in our service of others. Now, she did this during World War I, a really traumatic time. And my challenge to us today is, how can we practically do this in our world today with all its challenges? The second question, in 1940, Father Kentenich stated, through Gertrude, the family has been given much. Talking in 1950, he called Gertrude's consecration prayer Inscriptio, total self-surrender. She lived the same spirit of self-giving as Joseph Engling, independently as the two never met. This shows the amazing work and education of our mother and educator. What personality traits do you think they both shared? The third question, Gertrude and the boys gave all to the Mother Thrice Admirable, to contributions to the Capital of Grace. Do I do the same? How does the Capital of Grace bind us, to the other Schoenstatt members? And for personal reflection, what does my covenant of love mean to me? Is it the defining moment of my life? In what way? Thank you.